So this week we will be continuing on the previous week's video where we basically perform patent landscape analysis of a topic which is of interest for me, and to give you the context, patent landscape analysis can be thought of as a part of a FTO analysis, that means freedom to operate analysis. Again, we try to make the content here for the audience who are predominantly in academic area, and hopefully the other group of people will benefit from it. And this week the video will be very short, so in total we will be summing up the previous week's video, and again not going into the detail of individual patents and paper which will be of interest for me but not for you, because the topic can be different. But the goal of this video, or specifically the previous week's video, is to just to give you the how you can manage your patent landscape analysis. By no means we are saying that this is the only way. You can always have your own way depending on the context. It can be in fact different, but this is what I follow, and I find it to be helpful, and hope you will find it also helpful, this particular way how you can manage your patent landscape analysis, PLA. So let's start it. So the video will be very small, so let's start. Okay, so last week, if I can remember, let me just last week we had basically said that how you can depending on certain charter, then again charter comes from product development or product innovation knowledge, product innovation steps where let me rephrase. The charter basically means a part of a product development process where you just to start with you define your goal of the what product you want to build actually. So, and then you move on into doing a lot of managerial thing. The structural thing, you go step by step. But right now, by default, actually, product development ideas doesn't have to be brought here. But I thought it would be a good way if we can see the patent landscape analysis in the form of a product development process, where you start with some charter that this is my bigger, very lofty research goal for, let's say, 10 years, 20 years, who knows, like maybe for whole life, depending on your charter that you define. And so last week we say that how, depending on the charter, although we say that it is patent landscape analysis, but I think since we are more predominantly an academic community, so we also want to see what is the equivalent literature for those for the topic, and so what we had done in last week, we basically come up with a try to come up with some search strings, I would say, which will be relevant for the charter or the bigger goal that we are setting for ourselves, and in various steps we basically focused or changed the search string, or make it, let's say, dividing it into steps, different search string, and depending on, so we finally come up with I think three search strings, and what we found is that in EPO, that means European Patent Office, the first search string gives almost 3,000 patents, second one gives 11 patents, and third one gives 120 patents. Now for this week we use these all same strings. Okay, so let me just rephrase, and then Within that, we basically downloaded only 21 patents from search string, because with 3000 patents too much, and I thought like that particular string search is also not very interested for us, not that the main direction of research that we want to set. And then search string 2 gives 1 patent and search string 3 gives 120 patent, and we downloaded all of it actually, because that's more of a more interesting direction for us. Now for this week we use the same string and fed it to the Web of Science website. There also Web of Science is, I would say, better than Google search, Google Scholar search, because there you can use the same string and get more focused list of papers. So that was the new thing that we have done. And so now we have bunch of I think a lot of papers and a lot of patents. Now we have to think about the goal is to I think there are we downloaded, as we see, that almost 150 or 140 patents, and almost same number of, if not same, but at least close to 100 papers. Now you can't actually read all of them, because that would be too much of an undertaking, and sometimes that would be not a necessary thing to do, and also not a good use of your time, because you want to gain something from all those endeavors or whatever this structural thing that we are doing, and so we need to select, because that's also too much papers and patents, almost maybe more than 200, more than 300 maybe, who knows, depending on your search string. Now what I do, and maybe you can find it to be useful, is first you define the goals of learning. That means, okay, so I have a charter defined for what was my bigger research goal and something like that, and depending on that, you know that what are the things that you want to learn and at what level you want to learn. Like, okay, so you may have so here you can be an individual person who are interested in doing a patent landscape analysis, and so that you decide your bigger research goal. That is what the case for me. But you can be also a researcher in a bigger company and working in a bigger group. So in that case, scenario changes. You have to do maybe more professional thing, like each topic you have to learn a lot of things and draw out a lot of concept from it and information from it, and so you have to present to the team and all these things. So but for an individual person, I would say, or even a small group of researchers doing research in academic environment, they are, I would say, are more or less skilled in a certain aspect or certain 2-3 topics, rather than the whole spectrum of the technology that, or the instrument that we are talking about. So for me, let's not go into that detail, but you get my point here. And depending on that, you might define that, okay, so this is the instrument or the technology that I am talking about. It has a lot of subsystem, like for example, in this case, in medical scanner, it might have a software component which is equally important as hardware, and then it will be certainly hardware will have some material, some detector, and then of course with that electronics comes. So all these can be divided mentally as a subsystems, and depending on how much you want to learn in every aspect, that you have to decide. For example, the goal of learning for me would be here detector technology. I want to understand what are the updated detector technologies, what are the options available for me. Then software development, how much is software development, what are the new algorithms proposed, what are the existing state-of-art solutions for various correction techniques and all this thing. And more importantly, applications, like so I talked about in the charter, this is what I want to see, scan a very lofty goal and all this thing. But More importantly, you have to see the end users of the technology, how they will use it, and what are the potential application of those technologies. Sometimes not all the things will be mentioned in one paper or in a book, but rather you have to go through papers, and there are specifically in review article they discuss this thing, and it takes time to understand the application. But it's very important for us to understand what are the state of art as well as the future application of this particular technology that we want to conceive, and otherwise we will not be able to position ourselves in correct way. So that's what I'm saying. So these are the goal of my learning, and you have to decide yourself that what will be, depending on your skill set, depending on your team goal, a bigger goal. You have to decide, okay, this subsystem of technology I want to learn this way, or this much, and etc., and with this depth or with this amount of information, etc., etc. Now now the first step in searching screening patent and paper would be, basically you just read the title of all the papers that you have, paper and patent that you have downloaded, and divide into big groups, and those groups can be basically related to the learning goals, and you can make it not just the 3 or 4, you can make it more number of groups. That means basically technically it is a folder in your computer, and you save those patent and papers in those individual folders. Second level of screening would be, now you go through the abstract of each and every paper and patent and try to understand what will be the more detailed grouping of, that means subgroup. So you basically, it doesn't have to be like one separate folder, it can be one folder within that bigger folder, or whatever you want. But rather the idea here is basically you read the abstract here and try to understand the content, and very importantly decide whether this particular document, that means patent or paper, whether you want to read it fully or not. And maybe you can have a document separately that for each what is the, from the abstract itself you can just type it fast, that this is what this thing about, and decide that this is good to read full, and then you can save it into different folder or whatever you want to, just mark it that these are the things I want to read it fully, or if not read it fully, then you just take some note, that this is the paper is about, maybe 1 or 2 line note, because all this small piece of information you need to structure it in, let's say, small document, and you need to have it ready for next level of learning, because all this huge amount of information should be compiled into, because as you go on reading this, because you read it and you'll forget about it, but so just to take a note, you will be able to come back and see all this paper and patent into one picture, and then you can process it correctly. So that's basically my way of managing the patent landscape analysis, specifically patent literature landscape analysis. So yeah, that's it. If you find helpful, please use it. And yeah, that's it for this week, and see you in the next week. Yeah, bye bye.